Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. I don't know how to. I want to be able to amplify my computer, but not amplify my voice. Now, when I'm ready to play this, I can just play this. I just unmute this. Let's try. Okay, I'll unmute it when I'm ready to play it.
Or maybe try playing it one more time.
Okay.
Maybe we can just put it through the main speakers.
Okay. You tell me how to do that. Here it's playing. It's playing, but it's muted. Okay.
Just unmute it when you're playing.
Okay. Well, little technology challenge. But you see the topic for this weekend's japa retreat? Discover your relationship with the holy name. Let us offer our pranam mantras to Srila Prabhupada and Panchatattva mantra and Hare Krishna mantra, and we'll begin. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sanyavadi Paschachade Satarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I hope you'll find this interesting. This is the beginning session of several where awakening or discovering our original relationship with Krishna, because our teaching is all living entities are eternally Krishna's parts and parcels. All living entities are like Krishna, but tiny. And the tiny is meant, Sheshatvam, the tiny is meant for service to the supreme living entity. So thus, there's an eternal relationship of servitorship of the soul in relation to the supreme, inherent in every living entity, simply needs to be awakened or restored or discovered. So that's the theme. And we'll start at the beginning. Here's a beginning. Here's Srila Prabhupada beginning the Hare Krishna movement in Tompkins Square Park. And quite an interesting audience here, different people. And we're going to play a little video recording of Srila Prabhupada speaking about the beginning of the Hare Krishna movement in New York City. The class, I was attending this class, it was given at the Brooklyn Temple on Henry Street. And let's make sure that technology is going to work, and then we'll begin. I think technology would be much better tomorrow, and I'll try it again tomorrow. Oh, gosh. Because it's a nice little video that the message is the beginning of awakening, reviving, restoring our forgotten relationship with Krishna. The beginning is chanting. That was Prabhupada's design, and effectively, that's how it began. And now we're going to go further to just this phrase, in the beginning. This is an image meant to show the beginning of creation. Lord Brahma, the creator, Lord Vishnu, the maintainer, Lord Shiva, the destroyer. A biblical reference, very, very beginning of the book of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Not only our tradition has that idea. In the Bhagavatam, as you know, there's 4 essential verses that summarize the whole of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the first of them. Aham eva asam eva agre. It was I, this is Krishna speaking to Brahma. It was I who was existing before the creation when there was nothing but myself. So in the beginning, Krishna. And the sound of Krishna's name also, the word was God and the word was with God. However, this is an illustration meant to show that little living entity leaving the spiritual world, entering into the cloud of the Mahatattva, leaving Krishna's pastimes and Krishna's associates for some very unreasonable reason, some unknown reason since time immemorial. And Jiva Goswami addresses this in his Sandarbhas, Bhakti Sandarbha, Krishna Bahirmukha or Bahirmukha Jeev. He speaks of it also in Tattva Sandarbha, a Jiva who has become inimical to Krishna and then has fallen into the grasp of Maya since time immemorial, is in the state of bondage to material existence. Bondage to material existence means forgetfulness of what we already know, but have forgotten. When Prabhupada was chanting at Tompkins Square Park, I wasn't there. I heard this from Satsvarup Maharaj the very first day they went to Tompkins Square Park. After the kirtan, long kirtan, big crowd of people, Prabhupada stood up. That photograph that was in, he says, New York Times, my recollection is was East Village Other. But in any case, Prabhupada's words, his first words when he spoke in a public forum like that, I've come not to teach you something new. I've simply come to remind you of what you have forgotten. Who you are, relationship with Krishna, etc., through the medium of chanting. So once that relationship is forgotten, how to restore it, that's our topic for the whole retreat. So best to take assistance from our great acharyas because they've mapped this all out for us very nicely. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we have the sequence of steps, and we're going to go through them and then look at some of the steps more closely. Adao, that's in the beginning, some faith, some preliminary faith. And this preliminary faith is elaborately discussed, its function, how it awakens and how it moves, is discussed in the first chapter, or shower of nectar from Madhurya Kandambani. And there, Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur reasons, how does the faith begin? And he proposes a number of, some may say this and some may say that and other so forth, and rejects them and concludes that it's intrinsic to the soul, but dormant, and it becomes awakened by contact with one who is carrying bhakti. Bhakti, faith, is awakened by one who is carrying bhakti. And he's very specific. He says, he writes, that Krishna gives power of attorney to his Madhyama Bhakta. You can give me to whomever you like. So those of us that are trying to become Madhyama Bhaktas, we have power of attorney. We just have to know how to use that power of attorney properly. To whom should we give? And so there's instructions in scripture how to whom we should give. We give to those who are innocent and not faithless or blasphemers of the Supreme Lord. In his commentary to this, I'd like to read a little bit. There's 9 processes of bhakti. This is a simple translation of this verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. The 9 processes of bhakti begin with faith in aparusheya shabda. We're going to look at what aparusheya shabda means. Shabda means sound, and aparusheya means sound that comes from an infallible source. Purusha means a person, and aparusheya means one who's beyond the fallibilities of an embodied person. So in other words, Krishna. Aparusheya shabda comes from Krishna. So when a little beginning, this is beginning now, when bhakti awakens in the beginning some faith in aparusheya shabda, and without having too much attachment and too much material attachment and detachment. Later, we're going to discuss this more completely. Not too much attachment, not too much detachment. Well, I'll say it simply. Too much attachment means you're going to stay in the material field. Too much detachment means that one will go to the impersonal feature of the Supreme. One will go to the impersonal feature of the Supreme if there's too much detachment. So bhakti is this neither too much attachment, too much detachment, not in the material field, not in the impersonal field, but a candidate for bhakti. Here's what Jiva Goswami has written in his commentary on this verse from Rupa Goswami, from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. That person who has developed faith in serving the Lord, ati bhagyena, by impressions arising from previous association with devotees. Ati bhagyena, it's an adjective, it's a qualification for bhakti. By faith that's acquired from impressions from previous association with devotees. The word atibhagyena, or by extreme good fortune, means by distinctive impressions arising from association with devotees. That means either in our previous life or in this life, or combination, or both. Atibhagyena. Here's a little statement that Prabhupada made to a devotee in Los Angeles some years ago. The devotee in Los Angeles said, Srila Prabhupada, before meeting you, I was engaged in so many abominable activities, and you've rescued me from that kind of lifestyle. I'm so indebted to you. And Prabhupada immediately replied, that is not the case. He said, because of previous activity, simply by some brief association, you've again come to the platform of bhakti. Now, those aren't exactly his words. That was the message. And that's how the Hare Krishna movement began. The carrier of bhakti, Srila Prabhupada, and the name of Krishna distributed widely, created as this little video. Hopefully tomorrow morning we'll be able to play it so you can hear it. directly hear his voice, but it awakens the dormant Krishna consciousness within. That's how bhakti begins. This ati bhagyena, by some good fortune, there's some faith, and that faith arises from distinctive impressions from association with devotees. So here's a nice definition Jiva Goswami gives of this aparushaya. What I'm trying to do, just step back for a moment, hear from our acharyas how our forgotten relationship with Krishna becomes restored. So rather than something that's notional, here's something that's very explicitly scriptural, how to understand how that relationship with Krishna is restored. Aparushaya Shabda is revealed knowledge from a superhuman source. Aparushaya, superhuman source. It originated with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is received in disciplic succession from a bona fide guru. Aparushaya Shabda is therefore perfect pramana because it is free from the four defects. Pramana means evidence, or pramana means a means of knowing something. So a means of knowing Krishna comes from Krishna. Krishna reveals himself through this aparushaya shabda. Again, the phrase in the beginning, this is back to Jiva Goswami's 9 stages of bhakti. In the beginning, one must have a preliminary desire for self-realization. This will bring one to the stage of trying to associate with persons who are spiritually elevated. That's the beginning. Preliminary desire for self-realization that matures or awakens to the stage of wanting quality association. So then Krishna, recognizing the desire of the living entity, he sends such quality association to his devotee. Same verse. In the next stage, one becomes initiated by the spiritual master, and under his instruction, the neophyte devotee begins the process of devotional service. So Adau Shraddha, Tata Sadhu Sangha, in Rupa Goswami's verse, Bhajana Kriya, consistently Prabhupada would speak of the Bhajana Kriya stage, not just devotional activities, but devotional activities guided by, under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. And it includes the process of initiation. In another verse, here's Jiva Goswami, Rupa Goswami, where he describes that understanding the name comes from service to the name, this Bhajana Kriya stage. So you know the verse, Atakshri Krishna Namadi, Nabbhaved Grayam Indriyai Sevan Mukhihi Jivadau, Svayameva Sparatyada. Spurti, or the appearance, the sudden appearance of the name, the understanding of the name arises in the heart for someone who's engaged in service. This is Prabhupada's translation. No one can understand the transcendental nature of the name of Sri Krishna through his materially contaminated senses. Only when one becomes spiritually saturated by transcendental service to the Lord is the transcendental name revealed to him. And now we're going to take a look further at eligibility for having the transcendental name revealed. We're all in the beginning stages, everyone can chant. They may understand, like Prabhupada said here. They may understand, they may not understand. They may be attracted, they may not be attracted, but it creates auspiciousness. And as that auspiciousness accrues, some intention to serve Krishna and to serve his name and serve his devotees. And as one becomes saturated with that transcendental service to the Lord, then the holy name, the transcendental holy name, is revealed. You can say proportionate. This is on their topic of reviving or reawakening or restoring our relationship with Krishna through the medium of service in these different steps. Same verse. By execution of devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master, one becomes free from all material attachment, attains steadiness in self-realization, and acquires a taste for hearing about the absolute personality of Godhead. And this taste for hearing is a very important topic. Jata Shraddha, a taste for hearing. This taste leads one further forward to attachment for Krishna consciousness, which is matured in bhava, or the preliminary stage of transcendental love of God. And real love for God is called prema, the highest perfectional stage of life. So those are the 9 sequential stages. We're going to go back to this taste for hearing topics. You remember at the beginning, I mentioned this verse, so here it is again. When one is not too attached to or detached from this material world, and by some good fortune, ati bhagyena, that's association of devotees, he develops faith or jata shraddha in the service of Krishna's lotus feet, or in the service in jata shraddha in hearing the topics of Krishna, which is service to Krishna's lotus feet. He is considered to possess the adhikar for Shuddha Bhakti. So what's Shuddha Bhakti? Shuddha Bhakti is where Bhakti is not mixed with the modes, and there's no influence of fruitive intention. That's Shuddha Bhakti. This is the eligibility. Moving is the transition from where we are to where we want to go. So there's some conditions mentioned. Not too attached nor too detached from this material world. Again, too attached is materialist, too detached is the impersonalist. So neither inclined as a materialist or an impersonalist, neither too attached, too detached. That person, by some good fortune, develops faith in service to Krishna's lotus feet. So we're going to take a close look at this jata shraddha phrase. It becomes very important in understanding how to awaken or restore or revive our relationship with Krishna. That's forgotten. The very phrase jata shraddha is, or awakening of faith, is found in the 11th canto Bhagavatam, which is Uddhava Gita, Krishna speaking to Uddhava. And he explains the beginning stage this way. My devotees who have developed faith in hearing the narrations of my pastimes. In this verse, this is how the jata shraddha is translated. Developing faith in hearing the narrations of my pastimes. That's a fruit of sadhana. Then there's a byproduct, or that cause has a result. What's that? Detached from fruitive activities. Now, if you notice in the very bottom, there's an asterisk of detached from fruitive activities. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on that because they're sequential. There's a preliminary awakening of some faith due to devotee association. In devotee association, bhajana kriya, then some faith in hearing the narrations of Krishna's pastimes, jata shraddha. Then one becomes detached from fruitive activities. And then comes this appropriate detachment, which is try to accept objects of the senses just enough to maintain their lives, knowing well that sense enjoyment leads to a miserable result. So the phrase that's used in this verse spoken by Krishna to Uddhava is nirvina sarvakarmani. Nirvana sarvakarmani. Jiva Goswami comments on this verse. I want to read it. It's very appropriate to understand the sequence. Bhakti is not dependent on anything else because it possesses its own great power. It is not like jnana or other processes which are dependent on detachment or other things. However, it is dependent on indifference to karma, nirvrita, nirvina sarva karmasu. In order to bring about exclusive concentration on the Lord. You know, how to go from distracted to concentrated chanting. So listen carefully. This is a verse spoken by Krishna to explain how that happens. And the good grace of Jiva Goswami is explaining it in this way. Here's a little graphic that can help understand. Here's a devotee chanting Hare Krishna. And they're chanting Krishna's name, and Krishna hears them chanting his name, and they have a little faith. In general, hearing about Krishna's activities, but also a little faith that becomes awakened in hearing the name. And when that matures, as that matures, nirvina sarva karmasu. Nirvina sarva karmasu, indifference to karma. This indifference means not too much attached, not too much detached. Indifferent. There's activities, but it's not my all in all. I don't trash it either. I don't say karma sannyas. It's not all in all for me. Jiva Goswami writes, Bhakti is dependent upon that indifference to karma in order to bring about exclusive concentration on the Lord. So here's the quality of chanting or quality of service that we're seeking. Concentration on the Lord. Now this is a japa retreat, so it's specifically imaging chanting, but it can be any of the activities of bhakti. Your cooking, your deity worship, your family activities, everything, social activities, everything. But exclusive concentration on the Lord here is chanting. So this may be helpful for you when we come to our 64 round day to make this connection with Krishna clearer and stronger and understand the science from our acharyas, how it works. Same verse from Uddhava Gita. Still, enduring the reactions to their previous karma and endeavoring to become free from the cycle of the pleasant and unpleasant results which arise from such activities, they sincerely regret those fruitive activities and silently condemn them because it keeps one in bondage. They simply tolerate the reaction to those activities while simultaneously remaining engaged in my bhajan with firm faith and resolve. That's the end of those two verses, very important verses, giving us a picture from Krishna's own words in the Bhagavatam, as Jiva Goswami has given his in Sandarbhas, as Rupa Goswami has given his in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It's Krishna's way of expressing the same step-by-step sequence. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was being appreciated by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya in this way. This Vairagya Vidya Bhakti Yoga. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was being honored, and it still stands as a celebrated verse by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya to explain Lord Chaitanya. Nija Bhakti Yoga means his own devotional service. He taught his own devotional service combined with Vairagya and Vidya. Now we heard about, the detachment that's appropriate for bhakti. That detachment that's appropriate for bhakti was accepting things as they're required. And let's go back to that nice verse. Where's the appropriate detachment? Oh, missing. Okay. Accepting things that are in relation to Krishna only, maybe it's the subsequent verse, subsequent slide. No? Accepting things that are beneficial for bhakti, but only as required. That's a life of devotion. And as one becomes more devoted, it becomes your lifestyle. You don't need abundant comforts, necessities, and necessities may range from one person to another so that you can peacefully execute your devotional service. Vairagya, Vidya. Now this Vidya isn't mundane knowledge. That kind of mundane knowledge leads to mundane detachment, but knowledge of Krishna Tattva, knowledge of transcendence, knowledge of our relationship with Krishna, and continuing to hear those topics that nourish our relationship with Krishna. That's this Vairagya Vidya, Nija Bhakti Yoga, Shikshartam Ekam Purushak Purana, etc. This is Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's explanation. That's the same thing as as Krishna's teaching, Rupa Goswami's teaching, Jiva Goswami's teaching, and so forth, and our subsequent acharyas. This gives us a very nice understanding of how to discover or restore our relationship with Krishna in the form of his holy name. And I do hope we can figure out this technology so tomorrow morning we can see the little video of Prabhupada speaking on how the Hare Krishna movement began. And the beginning of restoring or discovering or reawakening our relationship with Krishna through the medium of his holy name. So there's our introduction. And I guess we could turn the lights on. And here's an extra microphone. If somebody would like to raise a question, you can raise your hand. Can somebody in the back turn the lights on? There you are. Any comments or questions?
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Oh, there you are.
Please accept my obeisance. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, in your address to the youth group yesterday, you said what the Jiva has is his relationship with Krishna. That's the thing we have in context to ownership. Now I'm seeing here also this relationship with the holy name. And of course, holy name and Krishna are non-different. I also was thinking, Maharaj, that we have this thing called free will, which is ours, the Jiva's free will. So that free will and this ownership, that relationship that we have with Krishna, how would that play out, Maharaj? Or is free will also not ours really?
Well, that which is ours is our relationship. The medium of that relationship by free will can be directed to him or away from him, or some spectrum of colors in between. Another way of saying, one of the things we also said yesterday, there are different ways of looking at the same thing. And if this one's right, doesn't mean that can't be right because it's not the same as this one. Our relationship with Krishna has as a medium our free will, because our relationship with Krishna can be ignored. It's still ours, but by free will, I'm choosing to ignore it. So it's part and parcel of what the relationship is. It's another way of looking at the same thing. It's the medium of the relationship, exercising my free will towards him alone in a concentrated way. That's the relationship. And when it's relationship of love, that's the mature stage of that relationship. Is that all right with you?
Yes, Maharaj, thank you.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you so much. So I have a question on a slide where you mentioned about the tolerance thing.
About
So,
the which?
tolerance, tolerating the past reactions of his karma. Tolerance,
Hold the microphone a little further away because he's got some feedback.
tolerance.
Tolerance?
Yes.
Okay.
So in that slide, it was mentioned that you should keep tolerating your past reactions of the past karmas, basically.
Krishna is saying yes.
Yes. So, I mean, is there any mark, or is there any like keep tolerating and don't look for any alternatives, or don't look for any solutions to get rid of those, or just silently tolerating it? And as you always say that material things will change with when the time changes eventually. So should we just wait for that, or should we endeavor to solve that?
My standard answer for a question like this is it depends. There's supposing a past reaction is a medical problem. Should I go to a doctor? But it also depends on, to what extent do I take it? And so it's not all in all. This is the indifference. It's not all in all, and it will pass. But I take some steps. Supposing it's, I'm a parent and I get angry at my child. Now I do something about it because that's a problem over here and it's impacting the child, the dependent. So I do something about it. It depends on the circumstance and the gravity. The tolerance doesn't mean you don't do anything. Tolerance means it's not my all in all. And now I can go into this mode of goodness space, a reflective space, and consider. And then in a dispassionate, not in a reactive, but in a carefully considered manner, what's the best thing to do? When you're in that space, your intelligence is far more active. You have much more freedom. When you're in the reactive space, your intelligence shrinks and you become like an animal. And I don't like this pain, or I don't like this person, or I don't like the heat, or you just get consumed in the circumstance. So when the tolerance is in this, there are circumstances where you do something. There are circumstances where you just patiently let it go.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
In combination, somewhere in between. That takes intelligence. That's what the intelligence guides the mind. When intelligence is functioning properly, it guides the mind. And then the mind can make a selection out of a menu that's with the assistance of intelligence. Now, how do you get that intelligence? That's the next question.
Take the shelter.
Super soul. Take shelter of Krishna. So that's the best. When there's this Dhruva Maharaj story has it 3 times, but his mother, Dhruva's mother, is like she's great, super mom. She's hurt, so here's a situation, and she doesn't say just tolerate it. She feels what her son is feeling because she's the mom, and she feels what some feelings towards the stepmother. How can she do that? But she doesn't, vent. She doesn't react. The first thing she does, besides comforting her son, putting him around her lap and trying to calm him down, she speaks value. Don't get in the mood of wishing ill upon others, because that will come back to you. So she's instilling value. And then he says, "What I want this kingdom." Then she promotes Krishna Bhakti, because that's how the kingdom can be achieved. And she has all faith, and etc. So she's not do nothing. Tolerate doesn't necessarily mean do nothing. It means don't get into a reactive thing. And then you decide with a cool head and guided by qualified people what to do if there's something to be done. Okay. Anything else? Contented group?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I'm trying to understand one aspect about how Bhakti, when you're reading about Jiva Goswami commentary, he was talking about how Bhakti is independent, unlike Jnana, which is really dependent on detachment. And simultaneously, he says, Bhakti is dependent on the indifference. So, is the way to understand this is...
I'll read it again.
Sure.
It's important. I'm glad you picked up on it. This is Jiva Goswami's comment on this verse that Krishna speaks to Uddhava, 11:20-28. Bhakti is not dependent on anything else. Bhakti is not dependent on anything else. And later it says, however, it is dependent on indifference to karma, which means then the indifference to karma arises from bhakti itself. Let's say, when the light is on, darkness is dispelled. Affinity for being the enjoyer of the fruits of work, that's karma, is dissipated by the light of bhakti. It's not dependent on vairagya, it's dependent upon bhakti. And bhakti itself gives rise to indifference to karma, which then opens the door for exclusive concentration on the Lord. Exclusive concentration on the Lord. Is that clear?
Very clear, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
And so that tells us something about many of us want to know, some of us more than others. At different times we want to know more than at other times, how to get free from distracted chanting.
So
Go ahead.
So if I'm not seeing the result of the concentrated chanting,
Not seeing the results of what?
result of
Concentration.
yeah. So
Bhakti is not sufficiently strong.
okay, perfect.
And because bhakti is not sufficiently strong, then my thoughts go to enjoying things out there. And it may not be like, wanton, wild material enjoyment, but, just thoughts go to things of this world, as a good person will have thoughts about things of this world, instead of concentration exclusively on Krishna. Now, concentration exclusively on Krishna doesn't mean I don't think about other people and I don't think about what's important, but Krishna is at the center. Pleasing Krishna is at the center.
This also connects to the second canto Bhagavatam, like Tivra Bhakti,
Yes,
like that.
yes. Yeah. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances.
Hare
All
Krishna.
glory to Srila Prabhupada. So at what stage our anarthas go away? Like in
At
this,
what stage do our anarthas go away?
yeah, I mean, like in the
Gradually.
sequence we know, but sometimes, yeah, in personal life, when can we feel that, it's even though you're doing things, but we see that we have some qualities that we don't want,
Yes.
to have.
Yes.
So
Your question is, at what stage are they gone, even the ones we don't want?
yeah,
That's your
and
question.
how to progress towards
How to
that.
progress.
Yeah.
Tivra Bhakti, right?
Patience maybe.
There's a whole other a seminar that takes about 8 to 10 hours is Jiva Goswami's Bhakti Sandarbha on this topic. And it's detailed. So you guys, there's a quick question that I'm saying it takes 8 to 10 hours to answer it thoroughly.
Okay, Maharaj.
And
I'll
it's
try
in,
to watch.
but the short answer, without all the detail, to answer it thoroughly, it's bhakti, carefully practiced. He makes reference to Patanjali. Patanjali Yoga Sutras, specifically practice. It has a nice definition of practice. So how you get to the stage where they're gone completely is by practice, abhyasa. So practice has three parts: something you do every day, something you do for a sustained period of time, and something you do with faith. And all three are important. Any one of those three missing. So faith can also rise, and faith can also subside. So when the bhakti process is properly applied every day for a sustained period of time with faith, then faith, as it grows, means the anarthas will diminish. Jiva Goswami explains they're very pernicious. They're very stubborn. They don't go away so quickly. It takes, they can come quickly and they don't go quickly. Offense gives rise to anarthas. The offense can take a moment, and the eradication of that offense can take a long time. But when will it happen is your question?
Rather, how to get there.
How to get there is with faith, and you stay faithful.
Okay.
Because it's Krishna's kindness reaching out to you, and you just remain faithful to Krishna's kindness reaching out to you. He's reaching out to you through Bhakti Devi, who's an expansion of Radharani. When that sense of relationship with Krishna's kindness through Radharani's kindness is coming to you and you recognize it, then you stay faithful, because it's a relationship that's the most important thing. And that takes time for that sense of relationship to be the most important thing. Meanwhile, we got a lot of other important things that we're doing. We're really busy doing important things.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Occupied in fruitive work, achieving our goals, and being good mothers and good citizens, and doing good things, and without the focus. So when the bhakti focus gets sufficiently strong, the anarthas are gone. So how long is it going to be different for different people? But the principle doesn't change from different people, or even different traditions, different cultures. Principle doesn't change.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Bhakti. Bhakti, in one phrase, Bhakti has this is from Kapila Dev's teaching to Devahuti. Bhakti has the power to dissolve the material mind. So what's the process? Process of sadhana with faith.
So chanting 16 rounds with focus, or try to chant more if focus is less?
Both.
Both, okay.
I mean, it's not an either or. Whatever works. Minimum 16, and minimum 16 then in a qualitative way. And here's a good recommendation. Find a way that works for you that you can increase quantitatively certain days, like Ekadasis.
I didn't get last part, sorry.
Like Ekadasis, fix some regulation for yourself that works for you, where you can increase quantitatively.
Okay.
And you'll get more of a taste. Here's two examples. Braja Bihari, you know who Braja Bihari is? The Potomac Temple president's husband.
Okay.
Ananda Vrindavan is the Potomac Temple president. She has a husband.
Okay.
His name is Braj Bihari.
Okay.
He's wonderful. He does some other service for our society.
Okay.
And he shared with me, because I was in Potomac a while ago, Memorial Day weekend. And he said, for Bhishma Panchaka, 5 days, that's very special in the whole period of time. He went to somebody's home. He took the time off of work where he could chant 64 minimum every day for 5 days. I didn't ask him how many maximum did you get to. I just said, what was your experience? And it really, he didn't have, he had an answer right away. He said, my experience was the first 16 were much more difficult than all the rest.
Okay.
And that was a realization where the quality of a chanting increased through quantity, but it's not that you're going to have that experience. That's what was his experience. So whatever worked for you. Or here's another one. The Houston temple president used to be, he's now someone else's, he passed the baton, was Shyamasundar Prabhu, disciple of Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Wonderful devotee. And he's really into chanting. And so the last Ekadasi, he sends me these text messages. He had a group of people, not just him, but because he's so into it, he had a group of people from midnight until 8 o'clock in the morning. They had a commitment to chant 64 rounds on Ekadasi day by 8 o'clock in the morning. And then the rest was, icing on the cake. But, my assumption is it didn't start there, but by that absorption and quantity, it has helped his quality. So some of both, not either or, and do some of both. Find a way that works for you. Ekadasis is a real natural way. You increase your chanting on Ekadasis, quantitative. Pandapanir Jalakadasi, have a party. Make some vow, then you stick to it. And like, this coming Sunday, we're going to have 64 round day. So gear up for it. Do the qualitative and see what happens with your quantitative. Excuse me, do the quantitative and see what happens with your qualitative. Okay.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Okay. Your mother had something too. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. In one of the slides, there was a line that the devotee condemns karmic activities, or the jiva condemns karma. So what exactly is this condemning?
It means, good point. For me, or for such a devotee, they think, for so long, I've been engaged in fruitive activity, and I feel so foolish for misusing my free will in that way. This is the free will topic. And as a result, neglecting what's really most important, my relationship with Krishna. The condemning is the foolishness of their past activity, misguided free will in the direction into La La Land, to like happiness that's never going to happen. How foolish. It's self-condemnation. It's not, I've misused my free. Let me redirect it. Let me use it properly. It's it's not feeling bad about oneself. It's a springboard towards going in the right direction.
So even criticizing karmic activities goes in the same direction.
Well, it's one's misuse of free will. It's not exactly the karmic. It's not pointing the finger over there. It's pointing the finger here. How foolish I've been to misuse my free will this way.
Yeah.
Read when you get these points. This is just some Bhagavatam appreciation 101. when you get these points clear, and you're reading the Bhagavatam, it's like watching hearing a great orchestra. A refined ear, a musician that has refined ear can pick up on the oboe and the flute and the bass, and the light drum and the kettle drum, and so you get, and put all the music, all the instruments together. It's an orchestra. So the Bhagavatam is like that too. There are principles. This is dealing with principles, and the Bhagavatam brings those principles to life. And then we will find devotees will from time to time condemn themselves. Just one that recently happened. Krishna rescued the 20,800 kings that were imprisoned by Jarasandha, who was planning to make a human sacrifice of them to Lord Shiva. He was a bad guy. And when Bhima tore him into two, Krishna went to the prison and freed them. So not only he freed them from prison, but they said something very wonderful, very devotional, wonderful. They said, we don't condemn Jarasandha for putting us in jail, for depriving us of our kingdom, because it was actually you. Because you were removing from us this foolishness of finding happiness and being rulers of a kingdom, phantasmagoria. And instead, you've taken that kingdom from us, and now you've placed bhakti to you in our hearts. And they all placed their heads at his feet. According to the Acharyas, 20,800 men placed their feet on the head on Krishna's feet. And they pleaded with him, please don't let us, if we go back to our kingdom, please don't let us get back to that mentality of being enjoyers of illusion. Please protect us from that. Please keep us always connected to your loving devotion. That's kind of the condemning, not that it's out there, it's over here. Misuse of free will, how foolish. It's one of the threads that make the tapestry of the Bhagavatam, or the orchestra of the Bhagavatam symphony, so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And then our acharyas here's this thread, here's that thread, and now here's the tapestry. Oh, so beautiful. We can appreciate the beauty of it even more. And then live our lives accordingly. I like Srimad Bhagavatam very much. Anyone else? Okay. Over here.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. So when we say we are completely dependent on Krishna, and we take the situations, sometimes the bad situations happen, and we take it as a mercy of Krishna. So do we need to respond or just act intelligently and respond the situations, or just take it as a mercy of Krishna and tolerate it?
Everything depends upon your relationship with Krishna. There's not a cookie cutter answer. That's why it depends. One of my godbrothers just today sent me a little Prabhupada recording saying, Narada is speaking to Krishna. And this is, Prabhupada speaking. I don't know exactly where this is in the Bhagavatam. Narada speaks to Krishna in friendship. Maybe I could play the recording. No, I don't have my phone with me. Narada says to Krishna, oh, you're very kind to the Pandavas, but they lost their kingdom and had to go into exile? Oh, you're very fond of the Pandavas, and they had Draupadi nearly stripped naked in the public assembly? Oh, you're very kind to the Pandavas, and gives this example, that example. So you're very kind to the Pandavas? But the Pandavas, they're so exalted that through all of these difficulties, their love for you has simply increased. That is Krishna consciousness. That was, Prabhupada. So if there's some way to circulate something like that to the persons who are here, can I send it to you and you can send it out to everybody? Okay. It's in my phone. It's back at your house. Okay, I'll send it to you and you forward it. So how someone's going to respond, what you described, is very elevated. How many persons can say thank you to Krishna when they're passing through some ordeal? It depends. Depends on your relationship with Krishna. These kings, they were not only lost their kingdom and lost their queens, they were going to be sent for a human sacrifice. And and Jarasandha was a mean dude. He could have done it. He had all the paraphernalia and everything ready to go. They sent a messenger. Krishna responded. Krishna freed them. He restored their dignity because the Bhagavatam says they were emaciated from not eating in a proper manner, unclean. Their clothes were tattered. They looked like, vagabonds. Krishna had them attended to very, very nicely, not just fed nicely, but they're restored back to a proper life. And then he said, you go back to your kingdom, and then your assignment is you give protection to others as you have received it, and you give bhakti to others as you've received it. That's my instruction for you.
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj.
No, that's very fortunate. And we're somewhere less fortunate than that one, but we have great fortune in what we do have, and everything that we do have gives us full opportunity for restoring our relationship with Krishna. That's the essence. Okay. Anything? I see one more hand, and then we're going to end over here.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. In trying to discover the relationship with the holy name, when chanting in that mode, and it boils down to that the relationship is relationship of service to Krishna. And that's only staying for the duration of chanting, and it's not spreading into the rest of the activities during the day. So I think, is it that it's the intensity of bhakti is not there? Is that the reason that why I'm lacking that mood of service for other activities?
Well, the phrasing of your question is a little unclear, but I think the answer is yes. I think what you're trying to say is, on the positive side, our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada was absolutely attached to Krishna. So whatever he did throughout the day and moment to moment, in so many varieties of things that he did, bhakti of Krishna was at the center. Now we'll come over to this side. There's you and me and the rest of us, and that's not always the case. And the distinction is, becoming attached to Krishna. Maya sakta manak partha. And to the degree that we're attached, then in all of our activities, we'll feel that attachment to Krishna, although we're doing different activities. Is that hit on the target of your question?
Yes.
So the paucity of our Krishna consciousness, or the not yet matured stage of our Krishna consciousness, yes, that's the cause of not feeling connected to Krishna while we're doing our other activities. Conversely, this is Bhakti Siddhanta, when we're very, very focused on chanting the holy name, it has its spillover effect on all of our activities. Because attachment to Krishna isn't circumstantial. The attachment to Krishna is best restored through chanting and hearing, Shravanam Kirtanam. And one who has faith in that, these other things happen in the course of time. Now back to her question of how long will it take and what's the process. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna. Very thankful for His Holiness Rompa Swami to conduct our Japa retreat this year after 2 years. So thank you very much, Guru Maharaj. Say Hari Bol for 3 times, please. Expect every year for Japa retreat. Thank you very much. So first of all, thank you all for coming. And it was a very overwhelming to see the registrations as well from the local and also